Thank you for the warning. I'm never ready for that. This is the Conservation Commission Inland Wetland Agency scheduled meeting for April 26th, 6:00 p.m. And I'll call it to order. May we have a roll call, please, Alexa?
Yes, John Mailing,
Here.
Catherine Knight,
Here.
Ed Holowico,
Here.
Matt Merluzzi,
Here.
Matt Pence,
Here.
Cheryl Brown,
Here.
Steve Hockey.
Here.
Great.
Right.
Okay. We have obviously got a quorum. This is great to see everybody here. Do we have anyone who would care to make a public comment, to talk with us or say something to us at this point?
Don't see. So yes, hold on a second. So there is one person with their hand raised, Miss Diane Laura Cella. And Diane, I believe you now have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Happy spring. It's a time of rebirth. And so I haven't been to your commission in a little while, but I wanted to propose something and see if anyone here is interested in talking to me, including staff. And that is, I was taking a walk through Cranberry Park, where I have lived for the most part of my time in Norwalk of over 30 years. And it reminded me of a study that was done of the exterior of Cranberry Park. I was able to help then the Recreation and Parks Department get a $35,000 grant. And they did there is a report available about the exterior of the park, the walking trails, and the assessment of the biological resources. To that end, I am very interested in vernal pools, and we have at least, I think, two or three different sites near the Cranberry School side of the park. And we had spoken about the possibility of not only placarding and using it as a way to educate the public that walks on the trails at certain select times of the year, so we don't disturb nature's incubators. As many of you know, that's what vernal pools are known for. Also, it can serve a wonderful educational enhancement for children of all ages. And lastly, I have several books on the subject. I'm an environmental professional, but I'm not a professional biologist per se, but of course I have an aptitude and interest. And that is, in some circumstances, we can get these vernal pools certified. There are procedures and guidelines that you can go through to make sure that, now this may be in other states, but I'm very interested in seeing if anyone would like to help us protect, preserve, but also educate people about vernal pools that we have, starting with Cranberry Park. So with that, have a great evening. And I would certainly like to know if any of you are interested. You can get in touch with me if you already have my email address or through Alexis. Thank you.
That is it for public comment.
That's it for comments.
Yes.
I would just want to say it's my understanding that vernal pools are specifically included as part of our purview at the commission. It is indeed recognized by the state and the city and by us as an important resource. Okay, moving on to number 4, receipt and discussion. S22 594 9 and 10 Hollow Spring Road. Remove and replace existing drainage pipe in and adjacent to wetlands and a water course. And I see that there are some representatives here from the neighborhood. Welcome.
Right, and I will, I'll do an overview. I'll share my screen real quickly just to get your place. Is that successful? So here's I-95 and Route 1 in the top corner of the screen. South is at the bottom of the screen. Fox Hill Road and Sound View Drive, which turns into Devil's Garden Road. Or here in Hollow Spring Road is a little private road off of Highland Avenue, kind of across from Brookside Elementary School. And they do have, whoops. Here we go, sorry about that, a wetland watercourse system, a larger wetland watercourse system here that drains in this direction, and under the road is a pipe that's about in this location here. So that's, I just wanted you to get your bearings. Sorry for my website's a little wonky. And then I'll just share Mr. Reynolds' site plan, which is here. And Mr. Reynolds, if you want to just briefly describe your project. I know your everything that you've submitted is up on the webpage, but right now on the agenda is just the discussion of what you are proposing and why. Mr. Reynolds, I believe you are still muted. Maybe if you touch the screen, bottom left.
How's that?
Perfect.
Excellent. Yes, good evening, everybody. Thank you for listening to me. The pipe in question was placed about 60 years ago, from what I determined, given the age of the houses in the vicinity. And it's been blocked probably for about, a year and a bit. And given the sensitivities of the area, we decided, first of all, if we could clear it using the hydro blasting and clearing the debris out. However, that didn't do it. Basically, we found out that I think the pressure from the hydroblast or the hydrojet caused such a pressure inside the pipe for what we could get to that it blew a hole in it. So there's only one solution, and that is to basically remove it and to replace it in as exact same situation as it is now, in the same type of pipe, and that's it. The reason for the importance of this is that the catch basin, which is marked on the map, is adjacent to the road, and that road, which is a sort of barrier between that side of the building and the wetlands, and the water naturally has to find its way into the wetlands. I mean, that whole Hollow Spring, it's not called Hollow Spring Road for nothing. The water is coming from both Devil's Garden and Highland Avenue into this catch basin or gully, and then pouring into the wetlands further down. Yeah, and the water then, because it's blocked, now flows along the side of the road and possibly will undermine the brand new road that we put down there at our own expense about 2 years ago. And then it will flow during the winter. It's been flowing over the road and causing an ice sheet, which is very dangerous for the residents who live to the south of that, as there is only the one entrance into Hollow Spring Road, which is onto onto Highland Avenue. That is a dead end down the bottom, which has got a turning circle. And that is it. I mean, basically, we just want to clear the drain and replace it as much as we can as what it is now, as and to take care of the water that accumulates on the other side of the road. And that's it.
Excuse me for interrupting, but could you show the other photograph? Number 2, I think it is in your folder. It gives another, that's the drain that's supposed to move the water
Yes.
under the road. And your intent is to start digging there, I understand, and to go through until you've raised the pipe. Is that how it works?
No, that's not the intention whatsoever. We managed to calculate where the blockage starts and where it ends. And it's on the south side of the road. I think I've marked it on the map where the blockage is. And we tend to want to dig there. It's actually where Alexis has got the thing going around. And we want to clear that blockage and replace the pipe from that point on. We don't want to disturb the road, and we just want to dig out that pipe, unclog it, put a new pipe down there, hopefully of the same dimension. I have to mention that where the outflow is into the wetland, the amount of silt built up over the years has probably covered the outlet by about 60%, I would say. It's hard to determine the diameter of the pipe at this point, but I would estimate that it's about 12 inches, maybe 10.
So you're really not trying to replace the entire 47-foot length of pipe, but try to keep a portion of the pipe that's under the road in place, and then add replace pipe for the second half, which is just south of the road and outlets into the wetland.
Yes, that's quite correct. We've estimated or calculated that the actual blockage starts. If you look at it from where the catch basin is, it's about 5 feet from the road. So there's a 5-foot distance from the road, and then it goes, and then it lasts about 7 feet, the blockage, and then it opens up again. And that's the part we want. We're not going to dig the road up or anything like that. That is not the intention. And that's totally viable. We can do it just in the ground that's there.
Do you have, do the wetlands technically belong to the association?
No. The association takes the responsibilities from, I think on the map, you can see the 2 parallel lines to the road. Those are the area of the ground that's the responsibility of the association. Where the pipe comes out is into the wetlands, belongs to the resident at number 9. And I think part of the papers that you have, he gives his permission to do this.
Oh, thank you.
It's part of a correspondence where I sent an email to him stating what we were planning to do. And he comes back, he gives his permission as long as we leave it as it is, which is the plan.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions about this project?
Yes,
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just wondering, are there plans for any erosion control while you dig out the pipe?
No. I mean, no. I mean, it's what it is. It's been there for 60 years.
Well, what I'm talking about is like temporary erosion control fencing to make sure that additional soil, loose soil doesn't get into the wetland to protect it.
Well, the idea is to dig out the pipe and not let anything go into the wetlands. I mean,
maybe I can jump in. And Mr. Reynolds, typically for this type of work, we would see engineered drawings that explain what's happening. It would have the wetlands delineated. It would have erosion control, like Commissioner Brown was asking about. And it's temporary erosion control, but basically it's, what you're proposing to do from beginning to end. And that way, that helps us approve the application because then we know what you intend to do down to every detail. And then our staff is able to go on site and actually confirm that what the board or the commission has approved is actually being done and has been done. And that may, it's a little more complicated process than maybe you were expecting. But really that's the only way for this type of project to go forward is to us to have a very clear picture as to what you're proposing. We have no objections in theory to what you're proposing. We just aren't entirely 100% sure what it is because it's not on paper other than, you know, the sketch that you proposed. So
Right.
there's a whole bunch of stuff that if you were to hire a civil engineer, there's a bunch of stuff they would put on there that would help us be confident that it's going to be done correctly. And it would help our staff confirm that it's done correctly. And then, you know, there's really no conflicts at that point. It makes it a lot easier.
And so what, so first of all, I would almost always completely agree with what you just said. That you do require and deserve a certain detail and accuracy to your plans so that you can make a reasoned and informed decision. Could we break down? I do think that for this activity, it's going to be pretty minor, other than that it is in the wetland itself. And so could we maybe just talk more about what the plan should show? And if that is something that Mr. Reynolds or one of the other residents in the homeowners association could do on the same base map, but with a little bit more detail.
I would,
Go ahead.
excuse me, I would just point out that the commission does have a certain amount of latitude as far as the schematics, diagrams, drawings, and other information that are provided to us. We don't, on certain rare circumstances, we can look at sketches and drawings in lieu of professionally prepared documentation. And I think what we're mostly concerned about here is not so much doing you're doing the work. It's regrettable that you have to do it at all, but just to make it very clear to us that doing the work is not going to exacerbate it or worsen any kind of condition in the wetlands.
So it sounds like you're looking for a sedimentation erosion control measure, probably defining the limit of disturbance, as well as the actual pipe would be helpful to understand the area of work and confirm that it is confined to either side of the pipe. And then some post pipe replacement stabilization notes. So like an overseeding.
There you go.
Would that cover? Are there any other concerns?
That would be extremely helpful.
I just have a question. I just wanted to understand, who's done the work in terms of doing the assessment of the problem and coming up with a proposed solution? Like, was it an engineer or a contractor or something that came up with an estimation as to what exactly, where the blockage is and what the problem is? That would be really helpful for us just to understand.
The pipe that was hydro jetting the water was applied from both ends of the pipe, one from the catch basin and one from the output. The length of the pipe of the hose that went into the pipe was measured so that it was determined how far from the catch basin the blockage was. This was done from both the catch basin and from the outlet. So we then measured above ground, and the pipe is straight, it is not curved. And we measured and applied those measurements to the ground above the pipe to determine where the pipe blockage starts and where it ends. and what was needed to be done. And the fact that it now leaks on the output side necessitated the fact that we have to replace it. If it hadn't leaked, we would like to fix the pipe, but water jet's about the only viable thing that would probably have done it. It's considered that possibly what's causing the blockage is that over the years, the pipe might have shifted. It's one of these, they think, because they haven't done any work of digging it out, that the pipe is in segments and they fit one into the other. And one might have been dislodged, and therefore roots or various earths and various other things have gone into the pipe and caused the blockage. So as far as determining where the blockage is, I think we've done, the work was carried out by Routerman. I can give you the details of the people there, and I'm sure they will be able to confirm what I've just told you, if that's what's needed. I also can take a series of photographs on the top of the pipe from where it goes from the road into the wetlands. You can actually see the mouth of the pipe. And so you get an idea of the ground that's there and what's involved. There are trees in the vicinity, but nothing actually in the total length of the pipe.
Did you consider, and I'm not saying that it would, I have no idea if it would work, but we've had some experience with culverts that have been segmented, and there is some frequency of failure among those, usually right near the joint. I wonder if it was ever proposed to do a single pipe to just replace the whole thing. Obviously, it would cost more, but I just wondered whether or not you guys had talked about that.
We haven't talked about any solution at all. We just, I haven't approached any contractor to do this job because I'm waiting to get a permit before I talk to any contractor about this.
Okay.
If that's probably the wrong way to go about it, then please, I'd be pleased to know.
Well, if you have a contractor, it's a conversation you could have before they actually put a shovel in the ground.
We are actually thinking, and once the pipe was cleared, that possibly a liner would be useful. We could put a liner through the pipe back up to the catch basin, so we would have one continuous thing and just fix the blockage and then run the liner in that area. That was another consideration. But as I said, nothing has been decided because I haven't had an in-depth conversation with no other contractor except for this router man who had this aqua jet to do it. And as far as getting to dig anybody out, I haven't approached anybody yet because I want to see what the reaction of the Wetlands Commission is.
Well, the one thing that comes across clearest from your description of the situation is that doing nothing is a pretty poor option.
It is indeed, it is true. And yeah, you're very right, sir.
All right, do any of the other commissioners have questions? I think this has been reasonably well delineated. I would just note that separately, you have asked us to reconsider the normal fees that are applied in situations like this, and we will review that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Thank you all, and hopefully we can reach a quick resolution of your problem.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, we'll move on to S22 595. I don't think we've got anything more to do, Mr. Reynolds, with Hollow Tree Road. Unless,
Right. thank
So-
you.
That's
So where
great.
do we stand? Do I wait to hear from you? Is that the situation?
Yeah, you're welcome to stay. Your request for a fee waiver is later on in the agenda under a separate heading. So they'll go through all the receipt of all new applications, all the pending applications, and then I believe on the agenda is consideration of fee waiver requests. So you're welcome to just mute yourself and hang out.
Okay, thank you, Alexis.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, moving along, S22-595, 13 Valley Road, Laurel Rock, some landscaping, tree work, lawn establishment adjacent to wetlands and watercourse on Valley Road. Is there someone here from Laurel Rock?
Yes, that'd be myself. Hello, good evening, everyone. Chris Powers here from Lower Rock.
Welcome, Mr. Powers.
Thank you for having me.
Can you just kind of briefly, I think we're up to speed on a kind of a overview of the property historically, and then an overview of it as it is now. Could you perhaps walk us through what needs to be done, the ash trees, the tree trimming, and you're going to introduce us to the concept of scrubbing out, I think, which is new to us. And,
Yes. Yes. Alexis, should I share my screen, or do you have the information? I can share my screen if you'd like.
That's fine by me. If you share your screen, then you can flip through.
Okay, can everyone see that?
yes.
Okay, great. So I put together a submission for the project. So new homeowners at the 13 Valley Road location, or walk on Wilson Point, their desire is to remove some of the some of the ash trees that are in the wetlands because they are very damaged from emerald ash borer. They are either dead or in decline. So I'll just scroll down. I have the map here of where that area is highlighted right along here, adjacent to the wetland. The water course kind of runs in this direction. So you can kind of see from my mouse where the water course is. So that would be phase 1 of the project, is the tree removal. And then phase 2 would also be pruning of the trees. So we have some nice native species that are inside of that area. And I made a map here of what we would be pruning. So there's I didn't denote it, but there's one very large mature ash tree right here that would be up for removal that is completely dead currently. Right next to it, there's one mature oak tree that we would like to prune just for integrity, health of the tree and overall integrity and health. There are some pussy willow trees, one being right here in the corner, one a little bit north upland of the wetland, and then also one right alongside of the road. We would just like to prune those off of the power lines. There's some power lines that exist right here, and then just prune them for structural integrity and taking out dead wood, just so that they remain healthy and viable. The next item would be, after the removal and pruning of the trees, we would like to address an area on the right-hand side of their driveway, which this map denotes right here. So this is right as you enter their property along the driveway. There's just a lot of brush and, kind of, very naturalistic at the moment, but they would like that for that to be cleaned up and be a little bit more presentable to the eye as they enter their property. So what I would like to do is to remove the vegetation that's in this area, and erosion control methods would be used. We would put in a silt fence like along this area and then along that area, whatever the regulation is as far as protecting the water course that kind of flows. Actually the water flows kind of underneath the roadway here. So, we would put in measures with a silt fence to protect that area so that the soil isn't washing into that water course. And then right here, there's just a lot of invasive species, wild roses and different other, pricker bushes and such that are in this area. We would like to, I call it as an industry term, scuff it out, or, if it's permissible, we would like to use we have a very small scale machine called a core MIDI that we own. This is a just off of Google image. These are some images of it, so we could use this apparatus to kind of backblade in the areas after we get the silt fence set up. We could use that to just kind of remove about 2 or 3 inches worth of soil to remove the root systems of these invasive bushes that are there currently. And what we would like to put back in would be, bear with me, I'm just getting back to my permit application. So what we would like to put back in, I put together a planting plan, which Alexis was kind enough to share with me this this plan, which is from the city of Norwalk. So it shows the water course that's involved right there. We would like to put in some trees, bald cypresses in particular, 3 of those to help provide a little bit of screening from the neighbors, and then to put in some native species, bayberry shrubs along the edge of the property and also along the edge of the road, and then to seed the rest of the area with a northern wetland mix of seed, which would be a combination of wildflowers and also other vegetation that can take the water and how much water that is in that area, but also still be presentable, and something that would probably be cut down maybe once or twice a season, and then be allowed to restore each spring and kind of grow throughout the season and have some wildflowers pop up in different native grasses. In addition to that area, we would like to plant some native species, because we know that by removing some of the ash trees in this area, we would like to put back into the landscape some native species, these being 5 shadblow serviceberry trees in this area, and then over here to put in some winterberries, to put in 5 winterberries, and then down in this corner of the property to put in 3 more shadblow serviceberry trees back into that area.
Do you
Any
have a
questions?
number on the ash trees that you're planning or would like to remove?
There are around 50 to 60 ash trees. There's a lot of smaller saplings. There's one really large mature one right in this area, but most of them are probably about 6 to 8 inches in caliber. There's just a lot of them, and they already have a lot of spotting, as they call it, from the emerald ash borer. There's a lot of different birds have kind of pecked through and have damaged the trunk, and you can see white spotting on the trunks of pretty much all of the ash trees that are there.
Are any of the ash trees completely dead, or are they just afflicted?
Yes, many are completely dead, and the ones that are not dead are in decline.
Thank you.
No problem. Any questions thus far? There is one other area that would be kind of perhaps a phase 2 for the homeowner, because there would be some costs involved. I'm not sure if that's within their budget, but there's a existing stone wall on the property. Here we're probably a good 50 feet up from the water course or more. The desire of the homeowner is to remove the vegetation in this area. This is also currently just pricker bushes and invasive wild roses. And where this existing stone wall stops, right now there's just brush there. It's not a landscaped lawn at the moment. Their desire is to turn that into a landscaped lawn. I'm just not sure if they would have the budget to. There would also be involved a lot of fill being used in this area to actually make it into a lawn that could be maintained on a weekly basis. The other option would be to make it instead of a maintained lawn, to also seed it with a wetland mix, where it wouldn't be as undesirable to look at, but it would also have some native grasses and also wildflowers that would come up. I'm guessing that probably their budget would allow that more so than coming in with all the fill that it would take to fill up this area, because there is a pretty steep drop off here, as you can see from the contours that are on the map.
I'm confused. Is that a wetlands somehow? I mean, what is the difference between the green area and that area?
I'm not sure. Maybe Alexis, maybe you can help me out a little bit in terms of what the delineation is on the yeah, so I think it's field, yeah, right here it states field delineated wetland up to this point, and then I assume everything from this point up would not be considered wetlands, but feel free to correct me if I'm in error there.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out whether it's under our purview. I'm not
Yeah, so it is. The green area is the field delineated wetland. The house on the property was built under a permit, I think in 1995, and the house itself was built in 96, 97. And there is an associated inland wetland permit that approved the construction of the house. It's in remote storage still, and I'm awaiting its retrieval so I can review it and its conditions. The green area is the inland wetlands as were delineated back in 1995. As Mr. Powers mentioned, there is an intermittent water course that runs roughly parallel to Valley Road. And what's not shown on the map are the upland review areas, but you regulate 100 feet from a water course and 50 feet from a wetland. So the proposed lawn area, in addition to the house itself, is within your jurisdictional area. Most of the activities that the applicant is proposing is within the wetland, so that all of the work, or 90% of the work to the right of the driveway, which would be to the north of the driveway, is within the wetland, and then most of the ash trees that are proposed to be removed would be within that wetland area as well. The stone wall that Mr. Powers talked about, that's currently nearest to, well, just in the area where he's pointing. North or northwest of that area is existing lawn, and then south of that, it all kind of looks the same, the wetland and then the upland review buffer area.
But the crosshatched area, and I guess you'd go that in the southwest.
Right. That is not wetland, but that is upland review area. And I am, as I mentioned, I have tried to, I've requested the 1995 wetland permit file to be pulled. I know that in the application narrative, it talks about restoration of lawn in that area. But looking through older aerial photos, it doesn't appear that it has been lawn since there was a house constructed there. The stone wall predates the house and was part of the lawn area of actually I think it's number 12 Hilltop that this lot was carved out of. So the kind of the stone wall feature predates the house, but for whatever reason, the area to the south of that wall or adjacent to the wall where it's crosshatched on this plan was not lawn. So it may be that it is a required buffer from that 1995 permit. I don't know that yet.
So our purview would be the activity of harvesting whatever is growing there and reversion of the property to lawn and the probable impact of that on the wetlands.
Yeah, so it sounds, for that portion of the work, it sounds a bit conceptual. You would want an estimated volume of fill and some kind of grading plan to show the extent and depth of fill within that area, and sedimentation erosion controls.
Commissioner,
activities such as that.
questions at the moment?
Yeah, I have a couple if that's okay.
By all means.
There's mention of the silt fence. Just to kind of springboard off of what Alexis just said, I think we need a little more information about where that would be. It's like she said, is all very conceptual right now. I think we need more information about that and why, like how much dirt is being moved or how much land is being disturbed that would require a silt fence. We seem to have information about which ashes are being pruned, but not which ashes are being removed. That's something I would like to know. The whole invasive species thing is a very broad term, and you did say something about wild rose, which yes, it is invasive if that's in fact what it is. I'd be interested in photos and maybe even a professional giving us a list of what's there. And then in conjunction with that, I would like some more information about what the actual approved ways are to get rid of invasive species rather than just mowing them down and hoping that the new stuff grows. For example, I think with wild rose, you want to dig out the roots, I'm pretty sure, and do it carefully so that you actually get it all out. I think just scruffing it, or whatever term, I think that's the term you used, is questionable to me. I just feel like you're just going to scrape the ground and disturb everything and maybe not even achieve a whole lot. I don't know that for a fact. You're a professional, I'm not, but it just seems kind of weird to me. I would say I can't really read your drawing very well. I can kind of make out most of it, but if you could resubmit a copy of that, that was a little easier to read. And ideally, it would include a lot more information, as previously mentioned. That would be nice. Grasses, you said maybe some grasses. I don't see any grasses on the plan other than the mention of mixture of Kentucky bluegrass in the brush to lawn area. But again, maybe that could be, maybe I'm just not seeing it. And then with regard to the brush to lawn area, yeah, we want to know for sure if is that actually going to be done or not. And then obviously we'll want to wait for the permit from 30 years ago at this point to resurface so we can see what was agreed upon back then before we can really say anything about what needs to happen there. So I know that was a long list. Hopefully you soaked a lot of most of that up, but let me know if you have any additional questions.
Yeah, sure. No, thank you for that, Stephen. As far as the silt fence, is there a certain distance away from the water course that we should put that, just so when I detail the plan more, I can put that in there and also instruct my crews to install it at the correct place in relationship to the water course.
And I just appreciate your following up on Commissioner Clockey's comments, but it might be more productive to wait until all the comments are in, and then you can get a kind of general sense of where we are and what is specific. Does anybody else have something? Because I do. Any other commissioners?
Yes, I do. I have some concerns about the scruffing out actually, like that's occurring within the wetland. And I think that it will be very important to have a wetland scientist tell us what's the quality of this wetland and what's going on in there before we start disturbing actually in the wetland. That's a really big concern that I have about this plan.
Are you talking specifically about the piece at the northeastern edge?
Yeah, the part that is above the driveway. But I mean, the fact that all this work is going on in the actual wetland and, removal of trees and the traffic that's going to be involved in that, I would like to have a better sense of what this wetland is like.
Well, I would endorse that totally. The idea of just taking soil off the top of the wetlands is something that, on the face of it, I simply couldn't accept. If we're really basically talking about taking a piece of wetlands and trying to groom it in such a way that it's more attractive, then we need to really sharpen our pencils, because that by itself is going to be problematic. There are improvements that can be made in wetlands, but it's got to be carefully thought through. It can't just be a matter of peeling off the top surface of the ground and then putting in silt fence to keep things from draining down. I think we can do better than that. I would hope we can do better than that. As far as the ash trees are concerned, that is an awful lot of ash trees to be infected. I understand that it's a pretty terrible infection. And I think that any tree that's alive that has that affliction, it would be responsible to remove it. If there are any dead trees that are dead because of the ash borer or any other reason and are ash trees, I would think that it would be beneficial to save at least some of them in the wetlands because they are valuable for conservation purposes for all kinds of species. If they are unsightly, since there's so many, there ought to be at least a few that could be preserved that are out of the sight line. Those are some of my concerns. I'm not sure about the volume of soil needed and the amount of work that's involved with the piece that I think of as the crosshatch piece here. But as I think Commissioner Clarke said, that is something that we would need to see very specifically outlined. Those are my views. Anybody else?
I think just to add to that is just two things. One that kind of hasn't been addressed is in the area where you're looking at basically clearing out the whole lot of what's currently in the wetland on the right side, that small section on the right side of the driveway. A concern is that it requires ongoing maintenance, which means that people will be in there doing things and adding things in the wetland space, which is not really the intention for people to be in there and having it actively landscaped purely for aesthetic purposes. I think the second thing is it's a lot of trees that would be coming down, and trying to understand then what's going on in all the spaces once the trees are removed. What are the plantings or what's happening in all that big green space where there aren't trees now? Needs to be understood.
Sure, there is quite a bit of Phragmites in that area that is, pretty much taken over all of this, in this area. So, there is a lot of native, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Phragmites is native and that is retaining the soil. So if the trees are removed, there still is vegetation there. One question that I didn't bring up in my initial conversation was, in order to remove some of the trees, there is a lot of brush there, and I was wondering if it would be okay to just kind of cut that brush down so that it would be so that a tree crew could get in to do the tree removals, because it's so thick in a lot of these areas. The brush is probably a good 6 to 7, sometimes 8 feet tall. So is that something that is permissible? And I just wanted to ask that question first before the work was conducted and before we would start, obviously.
Yeah, I think
There's no alternative, and if it's very specifically laid out, that is something we can consider.
right. I think that they're going to want, again, kind of sufficient detail to the extent of the understory shrubs and what those what the understory shrubs are. So it sounds like to me that there's a lot of requests. So I would recommend that you and I meet in the office at some point later this week or next week to kind of go over all the things that were discussed. And I think that they're leaning towards having you retain some kind of professionals in the field for some of the determinations. I hear an arborist for delineating the tree species and identifying the specific invasive species, and then also a professional wetland scientist to talk about wetland impacts. But we can maybe meet to kind of go over that, because they've laid it all out, and I can meet with you to interpret all their comments.
Sure.
Please,
Okay.
please don't misinterpret our tone, Mr. Powers. We're looking for what we can do and how we can do it. That's your objective and ours. So that's the direction that we're headed. Before we move on, any other commissioners have comments about what's been presented to date? I mean, this having been introduced tonight, Alexis, we're free to just drive by and have a look, aren't we? I mean, for a whole field.
Absolutely.
That's a challenge. There's no question. And I don't think anybody knows what to do about it. I'm not even sure a pathway through it, unless you've got a amphibious vehicle, would do you much. But anyway, if there are no further questions, we'll move on, and we'll let you work with staff, Mr. Powers, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank you very much for your feedback. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, now for 75 Witch Lane, FC Engineering LLC, number S22596, dredging of an existing pond in and adjacent to wetlands and watercourse. Alexis, I don't think we have much to work with on that so far, do we?
Right, so I have loaded onto the webpage the proposed application. This was relatively recently submitted. So as I mentioned in my email to you, I have not done a much of a review at all of the application. Some of you who have been on the commission for a while may remember 75 Witch Lane. It was part of a subdivision application and 4-lot site development plan that you had looked at some time ago. And so I will kind of just quickly do some. Oh, and the applicant is here, actually. The applicant, the engineer, as well as Ms. Mock, who did the soil delineation and planting plan. So I don't know if you'd like them to kind of give you a quick overview of their proposal, with the understanding that they will be coming back. It is a significant regulated activity. This one, obviously, it's a pond dredging, so it is within the wetland and watercourse. Any significant regulated activity requires a public hearing. I don't suggest scheduling the public hearing yet. I would like to use the pre-hearing time to make sure that you are comfortable with the plans and that the applicant has time to make any revisions that you feel that they need to make. But does that make sense for the applicant to kind of just do a quick?
That would be, I think, unless are there commissioners who have questions prior to the applicant speaking? I presume we're talking about the area along Witch Lane that has had a sign for some time saying lots for sale. And across the way, there is another pond, which is very carefully groomed, which apparently is a downstream portion of all of the wetlands. That said, then if Ms. Mock wants to speak, or someone else, now,
yes.
very fine.
I have a PowerPoint presentation, which is going to be short and sweet, but it's going to introduce you to what's going on at the site. So here's our proposed dredging slideshow. Start from the beginning. Okay, so this is the property, and it is a corner property. As you can see, it's pretty wooded except for the existing house, and then there's a driveway here. The house is situated in some sorts of valley setting, so we have slope coming down here, which is pretty much wooded, and also there is another slope coming down on the other side with stream, and also the pond over here being the central portion of the site. There's also additional wetland here. So some pictures, and I will just focus on the pond, not on the wetland, which is kind of a little bit farther. So there's a bridge, which I'm going to locate the bridge at the site plan, on the site plan when we get to it. But this is the view from the bridge towards the street. This is Witch Lane, and here's the pond, which you can see that is very silted, and here's the stream which flows into it, and here's another view with the street being here behind. So when you're standing on the street, you can see the left portion of the pond and the right portion of the pond. I was hoping to take one picture, but it was just too big and didn't fit in. So you can see that when it's really wet, and those pictures were taken today, which when it was raining, when it's really wet, you have kind of two streams coming on both sides of the pond or edges, with this big sediment being deposited in the middle. So this one, which kind of runs on this edge, which is closer to the driveway, it's only temporary, and it happens only during the really wet or rain events. And then you have much wider channel, which is curved on this side of the pond, which is the southern part of the eastern side of the pond, which takes most of the flow. And then in here, you have a culvert which takes the flow underneath the street and then goes to the pond, which was referred to across the street. Here's a picture taken from the driveway. Kind of, I'm standing closer to the house, which is here. So this is the view of the pond from here. So you have stream coming in. This is the big sediment accumulated in the middle. And here's the temporary stream. And this is the main flow here. This area, which is full of algae, as you can see, and it's kind of weird that that early in the season we see algae, but it's here, which is the sign that the sediment is obviously loaded with nutrients, and dredging of the sediment, removal of it, will help to keep the health of the health of the pond. Here's the culvert which goes underneath the street. And just recently, somebody took some of the sediment here to allow the free flow from the pipe. The pipe used to be actually covered all the way to here. And this is kind of like a little hump which the water goes over and then gets into this culvert. Here's our site plan, and in green you have delineated all the wetlands associated with the wetland watercourse corridor. So there's additional wetland situated here on the northern side or northwestern side of the property. And you can see that the slope leading towards this wetland basically, leading towards this wetland causes that the springs emerge at the top of the slope and feeding the wetland, and then also going down towards the stream. This is the stream coming kind of in the middle or flowing in the middle of the property. There's a little island here, and then here's our pond. What we're proposing to dredge the pond because it really needs it, and you could see how silted it is. And this actually affects the storage capacity for the floodwater, and also affects the habitat. Once a vibrant pond, which was full of aquatic life, now is choked with sediment, and the aquatic wildlife cannot develop here because there is no standing water anymore. And here's the main stream. So the water flows right now along this edge of the pond, and you've seen this on the pictures. Here's the culvert, and on this side, the flow occurs only during the very high flow, and here's where the algae was observed. In terms of the access, the site is going to be accessed from the existing driveway. The pond is going to be excavated, and then this is our dewatering area. The dewatering area is located where the current house is, and it's going to be demolished. Also, as you can see, the wetland area to the north is going to be protected by proper soil erosion controls, which will prevent and alleviate any of the short-term, potential short-term impacts, which are going to be associated with the soil disturbance and soil movement from the pond to the dewatering area. Here's a little chicken coop, and in terms of vegetation, we have bamboo stand over here. And then the edge here it has some large trees and shrubs which anchor the edges and make the edge pretty stable. And then this side of the pond is pretty much wooded. In terms of wildlife values, because of the lack of water and being choked with sediment, we don't have any aquatic wildlife living in this area. This probably corridor is used most likely by migrating wildlife, especially with this wooded area supporting a nice green buffer. And I'm here to answer any questions. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the depth of the pond is going to be dredged up to 8 feet. This will allow the fish survive hot summertime and also survive a freezing situation in the winter. And we are going to be installing a forebay, which is a little kind of basin. So here's the bridge, by the way. So when the flow is going to be heading towards the pond, the little forebay will slow down the flow, will take some of the sediment which is being carried in suspension, and the sediment is going to be deposited within this forebay. And this deposition will be taken out from time to time. This will be part of the maintenance. And therefore, this sediment, it will not be carried to the pond. And the process of sedimentation of the pond will be much slower and hopefully almost prevented by this measure. And I'm here to answer the questions.
I have a question, Ms. Mark. What is the applicant's intention in undertaking this work?
Is to restore the pond. So by restoration of the pond, by dredging it, we would like to gain back the storage capacity for the flood water. Would like to have better aesthetics of it. Would like to restore the aquatic wildlife and health of the pond. And also we would like to remove the sediment which retains a lot of nutrients from upstream area and causes the algal bloom, which actually it's just here because that's the only kind of stagnant water in the pond right now. And also open up the flow to the culvert, so the culvert is not going to be buried by the sediment pushed by this flow. Also, the forebay is going to be preventing future siltation within the pond. So it's going to be easier to maintain and keep this pond clean or without sediment accumulating in the middle.
So the intent of the work is solely to improve the conservation of the area.
Yes. And obviously aesthetics too, because that's important, but yes, the health of the pond and diversity and improvement of the habitat, and obviously the stormwater management at the site or the floodwater management.
So it's not the intent to build here?
This is not part of this proposal. I'm not sure whether or not the site is going to be developed in the future. I'm sure that once a proposal is prepared, you're going to have a new application, which is going to be showing the site development. This application is only requesting dredging of the pond.
Yes, Wayne DeVanzo, Fairfield County Engineering. There is ultimately a little farther down the line the intent to develop the 4 properties as single-family houses at some point. So just to be, clear on it, it is somewhat in the offing.
Right, and so there are these three lots, not including this one, that are currently vacant. The Conservation Commission have already approved development proposals on those lots. For this lot, there is not a proposed development permit application pending, but I would expect there would be one in the future.
That said, the changes to the environment that are being proposed, the results of those changes will be changed or expected to be changed again at some point in the future. That which is going to be made larger or smaller or drained or greener or whatever is expected in the short term to change from what is proposed to something else.
Yeah, I would not expect there would be any further work in and around the pond or the water course as each of the lots are developed. I wouldn't anticipate that. I would think they would stay, away from the upland review area as much as possible as each of those lots are developed. Particularly at the pond, I don't see them really changing anything in that area after this.
Will the outer limits of the pond change when it's dredged? Will it become a smaller but deeper object?
It will look pretty much as you see on the plan right now. It's in size about what is there, or what once was, as Alexander is outlining there with the cursor. So in area, it's essentially what is there now, but as actually a functioning pond. And going forward, I wouldn't anticipate it to be enlarged or reduced.
How would the dredging be accomplished?
They would have to, excavate, and they are going to store all of the material in that area as indicated, in roughly the area where the house is currently. It will be excavated by machine and taken there and dewatered as the process goes on.
They would bring in a couple of backhoes to clear away the materials and then take it up to that circle that's been drawn.
Yeah, I would think one, but yeah, one and probably a truck to transport it to that area.
Any other questions, commissioners?
I would like to add that we are proposing a restoration planting plan. I'm sorry that I interrupted. So the area here, which is the weakest, because has several trees which are adequate actually to stabilize the edges, but the trees are going to be supplemented by native shrubs, creating a nice buffer, which are going to help to filter anything which will be coming from the future development.
So existing trees will remain, but shrubs will be added?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. I would like a little more information on how the dredging is occurring and how, I don't know, actually, let me ask, maybe I missed it during the presentation, how you're going to keep silt and everything, all the debris that's being worked up in the pond from continuing down to any other wetland areas.
So this area, which is dewatering area, it's going to be protected with a strong filtration barrier, and excavated material is going to be carried to this dewatering area. And as you can see, this whole operation is going to be conducted from the paved driveway, existing paved driveway. And here the sediment is.
I was just going to say, maybe go over you are proposing to dewater the pond prior to dredging, correct?
Yes, well, we're proposing to do this during the dry season, but if there is going to be any flow, we're going to be proposing water diversion. So means that there is going to be a pump over here and it's going to be pumping the entire flow of the stream. And then the water is going to be piped around the, around the pond and discharged directly into the culvert. So the clean water from the stream is going to be pumped to the culvert. So this area is not going to be affected and the water will not drain through this area and then go with all the silt and turbidity into the culvert.
So
So-
just to be clear, so you're gonna divert the water around the pond and water won't drain from the pond?
Right, so the water in the pond is going to be pumped out and then as the stream continue bringing new flow, the flow is going to be pumped here via pipe brought here and discharged directly to the culvert. So it's going to be bypassing the whole disturbed area of the pond.
So fish coming down the river or the stream would go around, they wouldn't go into. So if you had any fish in the pond, they would be fish that you'd put in there and they would stay in there. They wouldn't continue on.
Right.
I mean, any fish that are entering the property or anything else that's entering the property that might otherwise have passed through it by means of the water course is now going to be rerouted into a pipe. And
Well,
sent-
no, we're going to be actually preventing the fish is going to be staying in the stream. We're going to be preventing the fish from coming to the dewatering pit and being pumped out. It's going to be just detained within the stream area until this area is restored and ready to receive it.
I have a question for Alexis. I'm uncertain as to how one can specifically define a pond, which I think we have to do if we're going to be looking at restoring the pond or changing the features of the pond. Do we have something about this particular property that would make it easier to understand what is a pond and what is just a wetlands and expanded wetlands? Ought we not to have, let's say, some sort of soil sampling around the margins of the pond to give us some clearer picture of what?
Commissioner Mailing, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to have to leave the meeting now. I have to leave a little early, so I just wanted to let you know.
It's 7:15, so they're gonna start leaving.
Okay, goodbye. Thank
All
you.
right, so we're losing Commissioner Pence and Commissioner Brown. I believe that we still have a forum. So to
Was that Commissioner Valiant who left?
no, Commissioner Brown and Pence. Miss Valiant was not present today.
Thank you.
Yes. So generally in Connecticut, all ponds are man-made because of some sort of natural obstruction. Nature would prefer to go from point A to B at the kind of what flowing to meet the existing topography. In this case, Witch Lane has been in this location for a while, and I think that when Witch Lane was built, the ponded area in the stream formed. So you can look through aerial photos and see the outline of the pond over time. so the lateral extent of the pond, as far as restoring it to what it, once was, is relatively straightforward. The applicant has previously delineated the wetlands on the site, so the extent of wetlands adjacent to the watercourse and pond are known. And then as far as the depth and what the pond looks like, I think that comes down to understanding best management practices for pond dredging and what a healthy pond ecosystem would look like. So, and I can certainly plan to talk to the applicant more about their depth, whether there is kind of a emergent plant shelf around the edge.
Well, I will.
I would say maybe a little bit of just information regarding the watershed that feeds the pond. So some kind of idea of the contributing drainage area for the pond. But like I said, it is clear from older aerial photos that there's been a pond here for a long time. But you would basically use all of that information to come up with a design plan very similar to what they have come up with.
Well, I appreciate that explanation. I'm looking forward to doing my research to find out just exactly what a pond environment ought to be, so that we don't do anything that's going to negatively change that. I have just one last question to ask, if the applicant has the time, and that is to remind me again why water is being piped around the pond.
To prevent the water flowing through the pond when we're going to be excavating. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of suspended sediment, a lot of disturbance, and you do not want the water from the stream, which is clean, enter the disturbed area of excavation and then take the silt and suspended sediment and bring it to the culvert, because it will just cause clogging and will create a lot of turbidity downstream. And as you know, there's another pond across from the street, so you don't want to cause any siltation or movement of the suspended sediment into this pond. So that's why the clean way to avoid this disturbed area is just to direct the water around the pond, in other words, divert the water around the pond and bring it clean to the culvert.
Yes.
Is it a temporary diversion while the work is being done? Or
Yes, yeah,
Absolutely.
this is just a temporary diversion. Once the excavation is done and the sediment settles at the bottom, then the water will be slowly brought back to the pond, fill in the pond, and then it will be overflowing and going to the culvert and continue its way. In terms of the emerged vegetation, I thought about it, but this is a fairly small pond, and you can see that it is going to be kind of steep. We would like to have this 8 feet depth, because this is really required for maintaining healthy fish population. And bringing any shells around the pond will kind of limit this, and the depth wouldn't be able to go all the way to 8 feet. And the 8 feet is really important for the fish to survive during the winter time and not the pond freeze all the way to the bottom, and also during the summertime. So you have mixing in the pond. So the water is being colder at the bottom and warmer at the top. So that's also important for the fish management.
Thank you. Anything else, commissioners? Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Moving along to decision or discussion or decision 5 S22 593 1 Old Kings Highway.
So yeah, your previous meeting, there was a good discussion with you and the applicant regarding elements that should be added to the plan, in particular, kind of deciding a physical demarcation between the proposed lawn area and the buffer, and the figuring out where that proposed buffer would be and how it would be demarcated. I have not received any updated plans from the applicant. He did send me an email saying that he can't attend, but he hopes that everything's approved. I have sent him an email back saying, but what about all the stuff that was discussed at the previous meeting? And I haven't heard back yet. You do have, from the date of receipt, you have 65 days to render a decision. An applicant can provide an additional 65 days of extended time if you're up against that deadline. That deadline is your next meeting. It would fall on May 12th, and your next meeting is May 10th. So hopefully in advance of your next meeting, the applicant gets back to me, gets some revised plans. I can draft a draft resolution for approval, and this is all good to go. If the applicant doesn't submit a revised plan, I would recommend to the applicant to grant you an extension of time so that you aren't forced to make a decision that he wouldn't really like.
Thank you. I would urge the applicant to get this done by the next meeting. And I really think that the applicant is motivated to do that. So with high hopes, let's table this until we have a completed application.
Sounds good.
Moving along to, I have to turn my light on. Fee waiver reduction request. Before we discuss this, let me just ask whether this is a lot of hypotheticals, but I think we have to if we're going to look at this fee waiver request. If the applicant engages a construction advisor or company, and that company recommends let's say a full pipe, or as the applicant has suggested, some sort of vinyl extrusion that can go through there. Would that entail a separate and different and additional application to this commission?
Considering the lack of certainty regarding the best repair when the contractor is actually out, doing the work, I guess I would recommend, I think that you could, you're kind of, I guess I would like to discuss this more at your next meeting under I'm a regulator. You've moved on to the fee waiver, and I think we should probably stick to fee waiver, but I think that we can discuss when you go back to the concept of the application. I think that there are ways to that you can approve scenarios. Generally not, like if you're talking like a development scenario, but for replacement of the pipe, it's either going to be a 47-foot length, 47-foot length, or a 23-foot length. I think you can review both of those and prescribe conditions, limitations, or modifications to an approval of each of those kind of concurrently.
So you want me to put forward different alternatives to what we could experience when we actually got in there and found out what lies under the ground? Oh,
no, sir. No, sir. We're not up to that yet. We're not up to that yet. This is more of a procedural question than it is about your specific situation.
Fair enough. Sorry, I didn't mean to butt in like that.
Let us address that, and then we'll get back to you. Okay. I have to say,
okay.
If I lived on Hollow
Spring.
if I lived there, okay, and I was looking at paying the same thing that anybody else would pay anywhere else of $600 or $700 for a fee to get a permit, and then I was suddenly confronted with the possibility that it would be better for the neighborhood to have a single pipe than to fix half of a pipe. But then I realized it's going to cost me an additional $700 just to even think about doing that. I would be discouraged from doing that because of the cost. Okay, I knew that staff understands where I'm headed on this. It depends. Okay, it depends if
Gotcha.
the cost of the work, given what you have proposed, might or might not be reasonable, but it's certainly also reasonable that if you were to do the right thing, or what was later said to be the right thing, it would be prohibitively expensive because of the fee. That case could be made. You don't have to make it, I just made it. But you understand where I'm coming from.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. Yeah, I mean, being the president of Hollow Spring Road, I don't live anywhere near this pipe. I mean, it's become because I'm the president, I am doing this because we invested all this money in resurfacing the road 2 years ago. So I see that the figuring out to get rid of that water is a top priority. And this is why I'm going through this. So that's why.
So it's also in the best interest of the Conservation Commission that this be done correctly. Okay.
Wonderful.
Number one. Number two, we've already gone into it in great detail to see why it needs to be done. We've already established that something has to be done. And we're saying that we think the right thing ought to be done. And we don't want what we charge or what we do to get in the way of the homeowners association of making the right choice.
Okay.
So that's where we come down.
Right. Understand.
Now, I'm not going to tell you that you can have your money back on this particular project, but I would say that depending on what you finally decide to do, the right thing, then it can be looked at under the terms of HB. Now, again, I'm not speaking for the commission, I'm speaking for myself, and I can be overruled by staff because staff knows the rules better than I do. But that's in terms of what you've requested, that's where I come down. I don't think it's an outrageous fee for what's being done, and we do spend a certain amount out of pocket, but I just don't think we're at a point now where we can fairly charge it. That's my view. And I don't think we need to vote on it tonight, do we? Alexis?
No, you don't. You just need to vote on it before you make a decision.
Okay, now I'd like to know whether anybody else has got any views or would like me to be quiet about it or whatever. Commissioners. Yeah.
I do believe the section about fee waivers is pretty clear about waiving it if it's for the public good and it actually helps the environment, which in this case is pretty clear. So we could certainly waive it in this particular case.
Okay. I don't disagree with that. I just would like to get the timing right. Otherwise, I'm afraid we'll get into a morass of 2 or 3 different ways of doing the thing, and it's easier if we just establish where we are on it and then leave the association to do the right thing, which I think they will. Also, I thought, and I would just toss this out, I thought the land trust owned a little piece of property between your neighborhood and that apple tree, is it, or not apple tree, but what's
Topping Lane?
Yeah. Was that ever the case, or am I?
There was an estate there, I think. I mean, there's 15 houses. The road is just over 2.25 miles long, on which there are about 15 houses. I think there was an estate, the Topping Lane, there's another, I think 10 houses, and we're abutting each other. I think that whole area has to be, I guess, about 20 acres, if not more. But as far as the road is concerned, it belongs to a family, and they want nothing to do with it. And in the days of yore, they tried to sell it to the association, but the association wouldn't buy it, fearing the responsibility or I suppose, if anything should happen, the liability. And so basically the association has taken over the responsibility of looking after the road. I mean, i.e. paving it or snow plowing it or making sure that the water flows in the correct way. I mean, it's sort of behold to us as the whole neighborhood is taking it over. So it's ours, we just look after it, period. And I don't know about this other land trust that you, hang on, yes, you're right. At the end of this watercourse, there is a land trust area that is in the flatlands, in the wetlands there. That the watercourse that we're talking about, that the outflow flows into, drains into that land trust area. You're quite right, that's right. Yes.
Okay, just curiosity. Okay, thank you.
No.
All right, so I think we are where we are on this, and we'll look forward to a resolution of it, I think, next go round. In the meantime, you guys can make up your minds what you want to do, having heard us, even though we're not crystal clear, we're not as opaque as we might be. So thank you for your patience. And so now now you don't have to stay, but you are welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. It was an experience.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you. Number 7, approval of minutes, March 22nd. A couple of things, Alexis, under section V or 5, subsection A, I think it's supposed to say not done so yet. I don't know if you have it there.
Not done
I don't have it. I looked at
so
it.
yet. Okay.
Look at VA.
Okay.
And then it's just, I think it's supposed to say not done so yet. It says done so yet, but it doesn't.
Right. Have not. Got it.
Also, you mentioned that you were planning in that, in those minutes, you mentioned that you were planning to meet with Rec and Parks that week to talk about us having a little bit better knowledge of what it is they're trying to do with their park inventory or whatever it is.
Yes, I did meet with them. Met with the Director of Recreation and Parks and talked to him more about the ideas that he's trying to glean from the master plan of parks. There is definitely kind of a programmatic assessment of their programs. But I did bring up the importance of open space when it comes to parks and park planning, particularly in light of the public comments following, for example, the plan of conservation and development, the need for more opportunities for passive recreation, nature-based trails, and walking trail connectivity. I think that's all places where some of the open space lands that are not park space could achieve that goal. He was going to talk to his consultant and then reach out to you. So that's where we left it, to you, probably via me. but I have not received anything yet. So
Okay, in process. Okay,
Yes.
that's all I had on the 322. Anybody else? I think we can try to vote on both of these at once. So let's move on to April 12th. Just in regard to my own comments, under VII, where it says signing up for, I think it was about the course. I didn't have any difficulty signing up for it. I had difficulty navigating.
oh, navigating. I will fix that.
Otherwise, no comments or questions or anybody else? Anybody want to move the minutes?
I'll move the minutes.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No opposed. The motion passes. Now, comments of staff.
Just very busy. It definitely is spring. I think it was Commissioner Pence had mentioned violations at the last meeting, and so now, of course, I have been dealing with a variety of violations. Generally, with violations, I start off with a notice of violation, which is kind of a letter that is kind of a nice violation notice, maybe. It really is just a notice. Hey, you're in violation. Why don't we get together and fix it?
Yeah.
Then and then hopefully they come in and they apply for a permit, and everything is fixed. If that doesn't work, I will issue an order. Orders, I have to come to you with the order, and you have to hold a show cause hearing to give the respondent, whoever has received my order, the chance to kind of show cause and show why they should not get a violation. So we don't have any of those yet, but we have some violations that are brewing, and hopefully they will be resolved with the path of least resistance. But
Alexis, how do most of the violations come in? Like people rattle their
almost all complaints. People calling in, neighbors. We had a lot of community-based cleanups for Earth Day. And so there were a fair number of people walking along our watercourse banks and our shoreline. And so a few calls were generated from that, like Joe Citizen out and about and noticed some stuff. So we're going through and inspecting all those, trying to figure out who's responsible for the work and all that stuff. So there was also a discussion regarding kind of figuring out if we could send notice to either the residents that have a wetland watercourse or upland review area. Amelia has been out for the last 2 weeks, so I have not had a chance to do that, but when she gets back next week, that will be on her list of things to do, is to run those numbers, to generate those numbers. And then I've also been trying to figure out how to track down landscapers. There are some landscapers that have like a mailing address. And then there are a lot that don't. So just trying to brainstorm how to reach out to those groups potentially. So that's kind of where that is. There definitely is a housing boom in Norwalk. We haven't seen too many wetland permit upticks, but for zoning, we received over 200 zoning permit applications from March 1st to today. Well, a few days ago. And a lot of those are for substantial additions or new residences. So a lot going on in the city. I did apply for a coastal resiliency grant. It's a national competitive grant that went in last week. That was a big focus for me for my last week, trying to get funding to work on flood resiliency planning for the city. And that's about it.
Do you have, do you know whether any other commissions are meeting within City Hall?
I'm a councilor.
Yeah, no, not that I know that the Common Council, it began hybrid with their setup in the council chambers, which you won't have access to because they meet at the same time as you do. I'm not aware of, so I know the council and council committees have just begun doing hybrid meetings, but no one else has yet. And so we can certainly start to figure out how that would work and look like. So there definitely is still the interest in having meetings be videotaped and recorded and then uploaded onto YouTube so that people can watch anytime. We continue to get, for almost all meetings, get views, so people are definitely watching the content. So we'd have to figure out how we would do hybrid. That would probably mean you coming, if you were interested in sitting in these lovely environs, bringing your device. The city right now does not have devices for loan to commission members or board members. Bring your device and we'd set up in a conference room and then do something like that potentially.
My personal view is that in-person meetings are more productive than meetings that are funneled through a CRT, but one can get used to anything except hanging. So I suppose we can just, press on regardless. Okay. Comments of commissioners. I have nothing further to say. God knows I'm probably said enough. Anyone want to ask, speak, comment?
Move to adjourn.
Good God, it's the same child, is it not, Stephen? Because I remember when you were not a big grown-up like you are now.
John thinks he used to be a little baby. Is that true?
No, I won't.
No, you're a big boy now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you, baby.
Oh.
Okay. I consider myself chastened. Good night, everybody. See you in 2 weeks.
Good night, all.
I have to
Thank
vote.
you.
I have to vote to adjourn. I move we adjourn. Alexis seconds the motion. All in favor are here. We'll see you all next time.
See you next time.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Yep, I'm